I went to steal something and stumbled upon a bedroom showdown. The handsome prince was drugged unconscious, while a noble woman fumbled with his belt, panicking and tying it into a tight knot. Phut! I couldn't help but burst out laughing, for eyes simultaneously turned to look at me on the roof beam. The noble woman gnashed her teeth. Here's 500 taels of silver, now scram. The prince pleaded for help. 1,000 taels. Take me with you. I hesitated, sitting back to watch the two wealthy patrons bid against each other. I'll add another 500 taels. I'll hire you as my bodyguard for 500 taels of silver per month. Alright then. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. I leaped down from the roof beam, hoisted the disheveled prince over my shoulder, and fled the Chancellor's villa. I had gone to the Chancellor's villa to steal. But just as I sneaked into a room, rapid footsteps suddenly approached from outside the door. Damn my luck, I cursed under my breath, tapped my toes lightly, and flipped onto the roof beam. Almost simultaneously, the carved wooden door was pushed open, and a lavishly dressed woman with cloud-like hair and flower-like features sneaked in furtively. She bolted the door behind her and rushed straight to the bed, her voice sickly sweet. Brother Jing, I'd rather die than marry into Nan Yu. Take me as your wife. Amid the rustling of fabric, a weak yet icy rebuke came from behind the bed curtains. Sun Jining, stop! How dare you drug this prince? My pupils constricted. Sun Jining, the second legitimate daughter of Prime Minister Sun Yanqing, and there was only one prince called Jing, Prince Chu. Xiao Chengjing, TSK. She truly was slapping flies on a tiger's head. What audacity! As I was lost in thought, a sudden rip of tearing fabric startled me. The scarlet bed curtains were torn down completely, fluttering before settling on the floor. Xiao Chengjing's face was flushed, his outer robe in disarray. Meanwhile, Sun Jining was wrestling with the knotted sash she had pulled into a hopeless tangle, her pretty face red with frustration. Phut! I couldn't help but burst out laughing. The room fell into a deathly silence. Two pairs of beautiful, wide eyes turned in unison toward me on the rafters. Or, shall I help you untie it? Seeing that no one was speaking, I scratched my head and took the initiative to break the tension. Ah, you're an assassin! Sun Jining shrieked, hastily pulling her clothes together to cover the springtime allure at her chest. No, I only seek wealth, not lives. A gentleman on the beam is still a gentleman. Not all masked figures are assassins, you know. Sun Jining gnashed her teeth and spat out, here's 500 taels of silver, now get lost. Xiao Chengjing, his face dark with pain, weakly pleaded, 1,000 taels, take me away from here. My movement to leap down from the roof beam halted abruptly. Swiftly settling back into position, I propped my chin on my hand to watch the two wealthy patrons engage in their bidding war. I'll add another 500 taels, hire you as a guard, monthly pay of 500 taels. Alright then. I leaped down from the roof beam, and before Sun Jining could scream, I knocked her out with a chop of my hand. Then I hoisted the disheveled Xiao Chengjing onto my shoulder and kicked the door open with my foot. The little maid keeping watch in the courtyard was so frightened she collapsed to the ground. Shush! I lowered my voice. The Chu royal manor guards are here, if word of today's events gets out. With a casual grind of my foot, the bluestone slab beneath me cracked into a spiderweb of lines. The young maid's face turned ashen. Please spare me, sir. Point me to an easy path, and I'll let you go. Trembling, she pointed in a direction, then her eyes rolled back and she fainted. Sun Jining must have specifically sought out this secluded courtyard and dismissed the servants beforehand. That's why I was able to leave the villa unimpeded, and soon after, I ran into the nearby forest. Xiao Chengjing's entire body was burning hot. I could feel his scorching temperature even through his clothes. Thinking of the 1,000 taels of silver as remuneration and the 500 taels of monthly salary, I couldn't help but curve my lips into a smile, tightening my grip and hoisting him up a bit. This is no man, it's clearly a breathing gold mountain. Heroine, Xiao Chengjing gasped hoarsely, his voice raspy. Please, stop for a moment, this prince is going to vomit. I slowed my pace. If you vomit on me. Before I could finish saying the price goes up, he retched and spewed all over me. The pungent stench of sour decay made my vision darken, and I stumbled on my feet. Rage surged to my temples. and like disciplining the mischievous children at home, I raised my hand and delivered a sharp smack to Xiao Chengjing's backside. The sound startled the birds from the trees. As the mountain wind blew, I suddenly came to my senses. Oh no, in a moment of impulse, I'd actually struck my patron. Your Highness, forgive my offense, this subordinate merely intended to pat your back. But my hand slipped. I forced an awkward laugh as I set him down. His icy gaze locked onto me when suddenly he coughed up a mouthful of black blood. I was puzzling over why he'd gotten so furious when I noticed crimson patterns surfacing on his forehead. The markings looked eerily alive, writhing beneath his skin like living creatures. They seemed vaguely familiar, yet I couldn't recall where I'd seen them before. I gripped Xiao Chengjing's wrist, feeling the rapid and chaotic pulse beneath my fingertips. Besides the love poison and the muscle-softening powder, what other poison have you been given? Scorching flame GU poison. It usually flares up only on full moon nights. Today, it was probably triggered early by the love poison. He closed his eyes, sweat pouring down like rain, his entire body curling up as he groaned in pain. I forced myself to stay calm, focusing intently until I caught the sound of rushing water not far away. I've got it. Without waiting for his response, I scooped him up in my arms and dashed toward the sound of rushing water until we reached a cascading waterfall. A silvery ribbon of water poured down the cliff face, sending up a spray of fine droplets where it met the pool below. With a leap, I plunged into the icy depths. Whoosh! A bone-chilling cold instantly engulfed all senses, washing away the filth on his body. I settled Xiao Chengjing by the stone wall in the shallow area and removed the soaked face covering. Your Highness, the pool water can suppress the fire poison in your body. The remaining words died abruptly in my throat. A dark current swirled in Xiao Chengjing's eyes as he abruptly pulled me towards him, trapping me tightly in his embrace. Unprepared, I crashed directly into his burning chest. Arlan, he murmured hoarsely, his scorching lips brushing my forehead. My heart jolted, and it took me a moment to remember to struggle free from his grasp. I glared at him, both ashamed and angry, suppressing the urge to slap him. Your Highness, look carefully. I am Lu Jiao, a complete stranger to you. If you want me to be the antidote for your love poison, no amount of silver will make me agree. Xiao Chengjing seemed to regain some clarity from the icy pond water and my struggles. His chest heaved violently, teeth clenched, Adam's apple bobbing as if wrestling with both the violent poison in his body and some deeper torment. After what felt like an eternity, he finally forced out through gritted teeth, my apologies. This prince didn't mean that, Your Highness, forgive me. I drew the dagger from my waist and cut the belt that was tightly cinched around his waist. His brocade robe suddenly unfurled, like an epiphyllum blooming in water. Glistening water droplets slid over his handsome brows and eyes, rolled down his taut muscles, and disappeared into his waistline. Unexpectedly, this prince, who was rumored to live a life of luxury, had quite a few scars on his body, especially the hideous scar left by an arrow wound beneath his right collarbone, shaped like a cold, crescent moon, with pale edges and a sunken center, as if it had been brutally gouged by some fierce weapon. I stared at the scar, and a sharp pain suddenly shot through my mind. A battlefield shrouded in yellow sand, a silver-armored youth shielding me beneath him, and an enemy arrow whistling through the air, piercing deeply into the area beneath his right collarbone. A sharp headache darkened my vision as cold sweat dripped from my temples. Dissolving into the pool, fragmented scenes in my mind collided wildly, screaming to break free from their confinement. My senior sister said I had a high fever years ago that damaged my brain, so I forgot everything from before, but lately, I keep recalling battlefields shrouded in yellow sand and that silver-armored youth drenched in blood. Who was he? Why does the scar on Xiao Chengjing's collarbone look exactly like his? Lu Jiao. Xiao Chengjing's low, ragged gasp yanked me back from my confusion. The crimson in his eyes deepened, veins bulging on the back of his trembling hands as his entire body shook uncontrollably. You, get away. I can't hold the poison back any longer. The fiery patterns had already spread from his forehead to his neck. Knowing there was no time to lose, I cleared my mind and swiftly pressed my palm against the Qihai acupoint on his lower abdomen. My prince, this subordinate will use internal energy to expel the poison for you. channeling the Haichuan technique at full force. A chilling mist rose around me as frost crept from my fingertips across Xiao Chengjing's scorching skin. Sea River technique. Xiao Chengjing suddenly raised his head, his Adam's apple bobbing violently. Where did you learn it? Who exactly are you? Focus, I interrupted him, moving my palm upward to press against his Danzhong acupoint. Under the crushing force of the Sea River technique, the effects of the love poison and muscle-relaxing powder dissipated into trickling streams. The most troublesome was the red flame GU poison, forcing me to divert most of my internal energy to suppress it. The crimson patterns beneath his skin clashed violently with my icy true qi, at times like magma breaking through ice layers, only to be covered again by newly formed frost patterns. The pool water around us alternately boiled and froze, forming eerie whirlpools of ice and fire. Not until dusk fell did the crimson patterns on Xiao Chengjing's face and body finally fade. His breathing gradually steadying, my internal energy was nearly depleted, my meridians feeling as if branded by hot iron. Leaning back against the stone wall, I began regulating my breath. Your Highness, this subordinate could only temporarily suppress the GU poison within you. To completely eradicate it, I'm afraid. Before the words had fully left my mouth, the sound of arrows splitting the air suddenly arrived. Look out, my pupils contracted sharply as I whirled around, shielding him behind me while mustering the last remnants of my inner energy to raise a water curtain. Dozens of arrows were intercepted by the water screen, pattering into the river, yet one still pierced through the defense with a thud, embedding itself in my right shoulder. An explosion of pain erupted as a warm trail of blood began snaking down my arm. Lu Jiao, Xiao Chengjing's trembling voice called out as he caught me. The arrow is poisoned, it seems someone wants you dead. I snapped the arrow shaft and handed my dagger to Xiao Chengjing, simultaneously seizing the sword from the first charging assassin. A flash of steel, and the first killer's throat blossomed crimson. Left side. Xiao Chengjing's warning had just reached me when I drove my sword into another assassin's heart. Amid the splashing water, I caught a glimpse of Xiao Chengjing wielding a dagger, swiftly dispatching a would-be ambusher. My right arm grew heavier, gritting my teeth. My sword strokes turned increasingly ruthless. After the seventh man fell, the last assassin turned to flee. I hurled my sword to pierce his leg, only to see black blood spill from his lips as he collapsed dead on the spot. I've been poisoned. The last ounce of strength I'd been clinging to gave out. Just as I was about to collapse into the pool, Xiao Chengjing caught me around the waist and gently laid me down on the grassy bank. Sweating profusely from the pain, I forced a bitter smile. Your Highness, no wonder you were so generous. This silver truly costs a life to earn. If I die, please give the money to a one in Apricot Blossom Lane. Tell her she must cure Lua. Xiao Chengjing cut me off. Don't speak, I'll remove the arrow for you. Bear with it. My consciousness began to scatter, in a dazed state. I felt a sharp pain followed by a cold sensation on my shoulder. Then something warm touched the area near the wound. No, that didn't feel like applying medicine. What was Xiao Chengjing doing? Like a bolt of lightning splitting through the chaos of my consciousness, my body jolted violently as a sliver of awareness returned. I wanted to push him away, but my limbs felt leaden, too heavy to even lift a hand. His warm lips pressed firmly against my wound, drawing out the poisoned blood mouthful by mouthful before spitting it onto the grass beside us. Each suck sent searing pain shooting through me, accompanied by unspeakable shame and terror. Your Highness. No, you'll be poisoned too. Please stop. Xiao Chengjing raised his head, his lips stained with a glaring black-red bloodstain, his peach blossom eyes shimmering with an almost maddening obstinacy. My poison. What's one more? No matter what, I will never let you die again. Die again. Before there was time to ponder, the sound of chaotic hoofbeats came from afar. I focused intently and listened. About 30 riders, 1 li away, coming from the direction of the other courtyard. Xiao Chengjing plucked a leaf, pressed it between 2 fingers against his lips, and blew a clear, melodious whistle. Moments later, a snow-white steed came galloping under the moonlight. My eyes lit up. Zhaoye Yushizi, the legendary 1,000-li horse that can travel 1,000 miles in a single day. It's come to this, and you're still thinking about the horse, he chuckled softly. Carefully lifting me onto the horse's back, I gritted my teeth. Your Highness, if you had such a fine steed, why didn't you say so earlier? You made me carry you for miles. My apologies. I only remembered it when I heard its neigh just now. It was originally tied in the stable of the detached villa. Perhaps the guards released it when they were looking for someone. On the way down the mountain, Xiao Chengjing deliberately slowed the pace of his snow-white steed. Soon, the flickering light of torches, like a winding fire snake, rapidly approached from below the mountain path. The panicked shouts of the guards rose and fell. It's His Highness Prince Chu. The prince is injured. Quickly inform the Prime Minister. Xiao Chengjing drew me closer into his embrace, using his broad, equally soaked and blood-stained outer robe to completely cover my face, leaving only my eyes exposed. The scent of blood spread through the night breeze, instantly silencing the guards charging at the forefront. Leading the pursuit was a tall, stern-faced guard dressed in black martial attire. He swiftly dismounted, rushed several steps before Xiao Chengjing's horse, and with a thud, knelt straight down, his forehead striking the cold mountain rocks with a heavy, muffled sound. Li Chuan has failed in his duty to protect. I beg your Highness to punish me. Indeed useless, Xiao Chengjing said coldly. Return to the manor and receive 40 heavy strikes in the disciplinary hall. I keenly noticed the bulging veins on Li Chuan's right hand pressing against the ground, his fingers digging deep into the soil. Yes, this subordinate obeys. Before long, the half-white-haired Prime Minister's son stumbled off his horse and knelt on the ground. Your Highness, this old subject deserves to die 10,000 deaths. Xiao Chengjing coughed lightly. Sun Yanqing, if someone hadn't saved me, I would have died on Silver Creek Mountain. Prime Minister's son trembled all over, repeatedly knocking his forehead on the ground until it was a bloody mess. Xiao Chengjing didn't spare another glance. Lightly patting his horse's neck, the snow-white steed let out a long neigh and galloped away like a silver lightning bolt, leaving only dust in its wake. His guards hurriedly gave chase, the sound of hooves echoing through the mountain path, upon rushing into the prince's manor. Xiao Chengjing had barely managed to give the steward a few instructions before collapsing unconscious. The entire manor blazed with lights as the young court physician Sumu worked through most of the night applying acupuncture, pounding herbs for poultices, directing apprentices to brew medicines. Sumu, how is she? Xiao Chengjing struggled to sit up as soon as he regained consciousness. Sumu sighed, fetched a soft pillow to support his back, and helped him sit upright. Miss Lu is fine, she'll recover after a few days of rest, but your Highness, with multiple toxins raging through your system, how dare you push yourself like that? You nearly didn't make it. Sumu stepped aside, allowing Xiao Chengjing to see me sitting on the chaise lounge nearby. A flicker of emotion passed through his gaze, and a faint smile touched his pale lips. Lu Jiao, you have been guarding me all this time. Yes, now that your Highness has awakened, this subordinate can rest assured. Truth be told, I was just afraid that if he died, there'd be no one left to pay me. You may go rest. I've already sent word to Xinghua Lane on your behalf. So, this is what he had insisted on telling the steward after returning to the manor. As I reached the door, I caught sight of Li Chuan, kneeling outside after his flogging. I casually asked, did Commander Li find any clues on the assassin? Li Chuan shook his head. I, however, found something unusual. What? He looked up. His eyes filled with confusion. We'll have to wait until the coroner finishes the autopsy tomorrow to be certain. I smiled and stepped into the sedan chair. Li Chuan lowered his head again. Steward Yang personally carried a lantern to light the way, leading us through winding corridors to a secluded courtyard deep within the prince's residence. Above the courtyard gate, 3 large characters in slender gold script read "Longing for Home Cove." Entering the yard, a winding stream of living water came into view. The night breeze swept through, scattering a courtyard full of crabapple blossoms and setting wind chimes tinkling beneath the waterside pavilion's eaves. I stood frozen in place. The pond, the begonias, the rockery, even the lush cattails growing by the water's edge all gave me an overwhelming sense of familiarity. Steward Yang, who lived in this courtyard before, no one, His Highness would come here to sit when he had leisure time. I stared at his lowered eyelids and suddenly asked, "Who is Alan?" The old steward paused slightly, still speaking respectfully. This old servant knows not. His expression clearly suggested otherwise. but since he was unwilling to speak, I pressed no further. At the 5th watch, a sudden fire broke out in the mortuary of the prince's outer courtyard, reducing all 8 assassins' corpses to ashes, their features charred beyond recognition. Li Chuan, the captain of the guards kneeling outside Prince Xiao Chengjing's bedchamber, heard of the fire and rushed into the inferno despite his injuries, only to be struck by a falling beam on his right leg before collapsing from exhaustion. News of the King of Chu's assassination at the Prime Minister's villa quickly spread throughout the capital. As the host, Prime Minister Sun was fined a year's salary and ordered to reflect behind closed doors, causing undercurrents to surge within the imperial court. Xiao Chengjing leaned languidly on the soft couch, raising his eyes to look at me on the beam. Lu Jiao, come down, your wounds have only just begun to heal, and you're already causing trouble again. I didn't move, casually brushing him off. What's a little injury like this? Your subordinate is already fine. Why are you so far from this king? He narrowed his eyes, the corners of his lips curving upwards. This king isn't a venomous snake or a fierce beast. It's not like I'm going to eat you, is it? I rolled my eyes inwardly with a look like yours, like a hungry wolf staring at a meaty bone. You might actually want to take a couple of bites out of me. Next month, the Southern Yu envoys will arrive in the capital, and the Emperor has assigned this task to me. The Crown Prince of Southern Yu is coming this time to seek a marriage with a noblewoman from Great Yong. Since there are no suitable royal women of age, the Emperor plans to select one from a prominent family, bestow upon her the title of princess, and marry her off. He paused, then let out a cold laugh. Sun Jining, to avoid this matter, must have eaten the heart of a tiger and the gall of a leopard. How dare she scheme against this prince? I shall grant her wish. Among the portraits of noble ladies prepared, I had her painted as the most beautiful. 4 years ago, the late emperor suddenly passed away. Prince Cheng, Xiao Chengshu, murdered his brothers but was ultimately defeated by the current emperor, Prince Qi, Xiao Chenglin, who shared the same mother as Xiao Chengjing. Prince Cheng fled, and his whereabouts remain unknown to this day. The emperor has only 2 young princesses, and Prince Chu is yet to marry. No wonder they're selecting from noble families. But what does any of this have to do with me? I only care about when I'll get my silver. Your Highness, I leapt down from the roof beam, gazing at him with eager eyes. You promised this subordinate 1,000 taels of silver. He leisurely shifted his gaze from my face to the steaming cup of pre-rain Longjing tea on the side table. This prince is somewhat thirsty. I immediately picked up the perfectly warmed teacup and presented it respectfully with both hands. He took a deliberate sip before placing the cup back on the table. Serve the meal. This prince is somewhat hungry. Fine, you're the boss. You call the shots. The exquisite 8 immortals table was soon laden with an array of delicacies. Xiao Chengjing lazily propped his chin, his gaze sweeping over the lavish spread before settling back on me. Lately, there's been no shortage of troublemakers trying to harm this prince. Lu Jiao, sit down and taste these dishes for me. His slender fingers casually gestured toward the feast. I resignedly picked up the silver chopsticks and placed a piece of lamb into my mouth. The tender meat made me involuntarily narrow my eyes in delight. How is it? Xiao Chengjing asked with laughter in his eyes, personally serving me a bowl of camel hoof soup. Try it, the chef's specialty dish. I took a small sip and sincerely praised, it's absolutely delicious. His smile deepened as he placed another piece of gourd chicken into my bowl. In the end, I was stuffed, but he hadn't eaten much. When I put down my chopsticks, he rubbed his flat, lean stomach and stood up. Lu Jiao, I think I've eaten too much. Come with me for a few laps in the garden to help digest. Lu Jiao, after a day of this, I felt more exhausted than if I'd been in several fights. For the sake of the silver, I kept repeating that to myself, just to suppress the urge to punch Xiao Chengjing across the room. 3 days later, when I hurried back to the small courtyard in Apricot Blossom Lane with 1,000 taels of silver notes in my pocket, my senior sister was brewing medicine. She told me that Xiao Chengjing not only sent someone with 200 taels of silver but also brought back Dr. Qian from the Sacred Medical Hall in the capital, a specialist in treating children's heart conditions, to examine Lua. Dr. Qian complained that the fast horse nearly jolted his bones apart. My senior sister said with a laugh, then frowned and tightly grasped my hand. Jiao Jiao, Did you sell yourself into the prince's mansion? Not at all. I just happened to save the Prince of Chu's life, and let me tell you, this prince is quite generous. My senior sister's question reminded me Xiao Chengjing never made me sign a servant contract from start to finish, only briefly asked about my situation. I didn't hide anything from him either, explaining how my senior sister and I had brought several children from Jiangnan to the capital 2 months ago to find Dr. Qian. Unexpectedly, Dr. Qian had left the capital, and we didn't know where he went. Later, when we ran out of money, we went to the Prime Minister's villa to rob the rich to help the poor, my senior sister said worriedly. The Prince of Chu is being so kind to us, I'm afraid he has ulterior motives. He's already a prince, what could he possibly want from us? I stroked my chin. Unless, it's because I look like Alan. Alan, senior sister's face instantly paled, then quickly returned to normal as she lightly tapped my forehead. What nonsense about Alan or Alu, Jiao Jiao. This silver is enough to treat Louis' illness. Quit your job at the prince's residence and come home immediately. I chuckled and quickly dodged backward, putting some distance between us. Don't worry, senior sister, I know what I'm doing. Once Louis' condition stabilizes, we'll return to Jiangnan and open a small shop. With such a high monthly salary, only a fool would refuse it. Jiao Jiao, slow down, it just rained, and the ground is slippery. Senior sister exclaimed anxiously, stomping her feet, and remember to take the Guan pills on time. A white porcelain bottle came flying through the air. I caught it with a backhanded grab and slipped away without even turning my head. I returned to the manor and casually tossed the medicine bottle into the cabinet. Actually, my internal injuries had long since healed, but my senior sister never believed me. In the 2 months since we arrived in the capital, she had been busy taking Lua around to various doctors and apothecaries, so she couldn't keep an eye on me. I quietly stopped taking the medicine. The next morning, just after I finished my practice, Xiao Chengjing sent someone to deliver a message. Guard Lu, His Highness requests your preparation. You are to accompany him outside the city to greet the southern Yu envoy in the time it takes an incense stick to burn. I changed into a fitted black outfit and followed Xiao Chengjing on horseback. Spring rains had fallen several times over the past 2 days, leaving the air damp with lingering chill. Suddenly, a dark short cloak came flying toward me. I caught it with one hand, the finest cloud-patterned brocade, its collar lined with delicate golden thread embroidering a flowing character jing. This was his personal belonging. Put it on, Xiao Chengjing spoke without turning his head. The 4-clawed python pattern embroidered with golden threads shimmered brilliantly in the sunlight, making him appear even more noble and distinguished. Outside the city gates, ceremonial music resounded in unison as the envoy procession from Nanyu slowly approached, leading the group. A man astride a tall steed wore a brocade robe of profound black, his hair tied back with a golden crown. His handsome features carried an air of arrogance between his brows, none other than Duan Chongyuan, the Crown Prince of Nanyu. He sat upright on his horse, giving Xiao Chengjing a slight nod. Your Highness, the Prince of Chu, an exotic accent wrapped around a deep voice, his gaze freezing abruptly the moment it swept past me. Your Highness, the Crown Prince has come a long way. You must be. Before the words could finish, sudden chaos erupted. Duan Chongyuan's steed suddenly reared with a terrified whinny, bolting wildly toward the dense forest path beside the official road. The envoy formation instantly fell into chaos as startled shouts erupted. Lu Jiao, take men to intercept that runaway horse. The rest of you, protect the envoy, Xiao Chengjing commanded with steady composure. Digging my heels into my mount's flanks, I shot forward like an arrow from the bow. Chasing after that out-of-control black silhouette, branches and leaves whistled past my ears as we plunged through the dense woods. The black steed had completely lost control, charging wildly toward a centuries-old cypress tree, while Duan Chongyuan on its back was jolted so violently that his stirrups came loose. At the critical moment, I unfastened my cloak and flung it out with precision, covering the horse's head just as I kicked off the saddle with my boot tip. Propelling myself swiftly onto the black steed, with my left hand gripping the saddle tightly and my right hand joining Duan Chongyuan in yanking the reins fiercely, we barely managed to halt the black steed mere inches from the ancient tree. Impressive skill, Duan Chongyuan exclaimed in admiration. suddenly releasing the reins and leaning back as if intending to sink entirely into my embrace. Damn bastard, I gritted my teeth secretly, using the dagger hilt to hook the jade pendant at his waist before swiftly rolling off the horse. Thud! Duan Chongyuan suddenly lost his support and was yanked by the external force, tumbling headfirst into the grass. His golden crown sat askew, his dark robe splattered with mud and grass clippings, a rather comical sight. I deserve death for my failure. Please punish me, Your Highness. I bowed deeply with clasped fists, begging for punishment. Duan Chongyuan showed no trace of anger on his face. He leisurely picked himself up and straightened his posture. You saved this prince's life, why would I punish you? Though my black steed has been startled and is no longer fit to ride, perhaps I might share your mount, young lady. His gaze fell upon the chestnut mare standing behind me. The delegation had plenty of spare steeds, not to mention those ornate carriages. Duan Chongyuan's words made one wonder what schemes he harbored in his heart. I bowed respectfully. Your Highness, noble person is beyond compare, and Lu Jiao dares not overstep. This horse is the most docile, please do it the honor. With that, I handed him the reins. Duan Chongyuan stood with his hands behind his back, refusing to take them. This prince has had a fright and requires the protection of a skilled expert like yourself, close protection. He deliberately emphasized the words close protection with pointed weight. Your Royal Highness, why not ride with me? I guarantee your safe arrival at the embassy. Xiao Chengjing's voice came from behind. He smiled faintly, but his eyes held a hidden chill. No, no need. I find Miss Lu's horse quite good. Duan Chongyuan snatched the reins from my hand and deftly swung himself onto the horse. Xiao Chengjing glanced at me, then turned his horse around, departing with his guards and the officials from the court of state ceremonials. I immediately turned around and followed the hoofprints of the black steed. The horse hadn't run far after breaking free from the cloak. It lay on the ground with its mouth open, already on the verge of death. I took out a magnet and carefully searched the horse's body. In less time than it takes to drink a cup of tea, 2 extremely fine silver needles were drawn up by the magnet. The banquet was held in the main hall of Honglu Temple, candlelight illuminating the splendid scene. I quietly positioned myself behind Xiao Chengjing, and while pouring wine, whispered, Your Highness, your subordinate found 2 silver needles on Wu Jue, and Sumu detected wolfsbane poison. Xiao Chengjing's expression remained unchanged as he picked up a translucent slice of perch sashimi with his jade chopsticks. Investigate. I want to see who is stirring up trouble. Understood. The moment I raised my eyes, I met Duan Chongyuan's amused gaze. He lounged lazily by the low table, fingertips tracing the rim of his cup. His serpentine eyes pierced through the swirling sleeves of the dancing girls, locking onto me with unsettling intensity. That sticky, cold stare sent a shiver down my spine. Prince of Chu, he suddenly raised his cup, amber liquor swirling within. This crown prince has an impertinent request. Speak freely. Your Highness the Crown Prince. Duan Chongyuan's lips curved into a slight smile. Today, I encountered danger and am still shaken. Miss Lu's skills are extraordinary. Before I leave the capital, I would like to ask her to accompany me as a guard. I wonder if His Royal Highness Prince Chu would be willing to part with her. Xiao Chengjing's wine cup paused almost imperceptibly in his hand. Lu Jiao has just entered the manor and is still unfamiliar with etiquette, so she might cause offense, he said, his voice gentle but with an undeniable force. I have already prepared more suitable guards for His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. And I will also strengthen the embassy's defenses. Your Highness can rest assured, but I just happen to fancy Miss Lu. Duan Chongyuan's tone shifted, a hint of sharpness flashing in his eyes. I heard that Prince Chu once defeated Beituo's 200,000 cavalry with 50,000 troops, showing extraordinary bravery. How about we have a match? If I am fortunate enough to win, I ask Your Highness to grant this request. The entire hall erupted in murmurs. Several white-bearded senior ministers whispered among themselves, while the Minister of Ceremonies had beads of sweat forming on his forehead. My heart tightened. I never imagined I would become a pawn in the power struggle between 2 nations. Lu Jiao is not a wager. I advise Your Highness the Crown Prince to choose your words carefully. Xiao Chengjing's voice suddenly turned icy. Could it be that the Prince of Chu is afraid and dares not accept the challenge? Rage surged within me. This southern new crown prince was truly going too far. Before Xiao Chenjing could speak, I stepped forward a few paces, cupped my hands, and bowed to Duan Chongyuan, my voice neither humble nor arrogant. If Your Highness the Crown Prince doesn't mind, your subordinate is willing to fight on behalf of the prince. Good. Miss Lu is indeed straightforward. Duan Chongyuan clapped his hands and chuckled softly. And if Your Highness the Crown Prince loses, I wanted his prize. Preferably gold and silver. Duan Chongyuan slowly removed the jade pendant from his waist, the one that had nearly shattered in the outskirts of the city, and held it aloft in his hand. The jade was no larger than an infant's palm. At first glance, it appeared flawlessly white as freshly fallen snow, but upon closer inspection, one could see a deep, flowing blue radiance within the jade's core, as though something alive were exhaling icy breaths. If I lose, this snow soul jade shall be yours. It was mined from the summit of the heavenly mountains and tempered with secret techniques by the witch doctors of Nanyu. When activated with inner energy, it can neutralize 100 poisons, especially fire toxins. My pupils contracted slightly. Did he know Xiao Chengjing had been poisoned with the blazing flame Jiyu? What shall we compete in? Duan Chongyuan's eyes sparkled with even greater interest as he motioned for an attendant to bring forth a gilded longbow. How about startled sparrow bells? Hang 10 bronze bells 100 paces away, each with a live sparrow tied beneath. Each contestant gets 5 arrows, and whoever knocks down the most bells wins. Agreed. I replied, relieved. Let's add one more rule. Anyone who harms a sparrow will have that arrow disqualified. The guests, hearing this, erupted in an uproar. Even Xiao Chenjing couldn't help but straighten up. Good, I accept. Xiao Chenjing's gaze was deep as he looked over. Meeting his eyes, I silently mouthed 2 words. Don't worry. This confidence stemmed from my days in the fishing village in Jiangnan. As someone who disliked eating fish, I often went hunting in the mountains, and my archery skills became increasingly refined. Even after my injury and amnesia 3 years ago, my archery never faltered in the slightest. It was just that my senior sister always admonished me to hide my true abilities and avoid attracting trouble. Clang, the bronze gong sounded, marking the start of the contest. 10 copper bells swayed gently in the wind, each tied with a thin string to a sparrow beneath. The sparrows fluttered and struggled, causing the bells to swing erratically, producing a chaotic jingle. Duan Chongyuan struck first, his gilded longbow humming as an arrow shot through the air. With a ding, one of the copper bells fell, the sparrow flapping helplessly on the ground. I took a deep breath, and as the Haichuan Art's inner energy flowed, the surrounding noise faded, the bowstring vibrated lightly, and the arrow precisely severed the rope. The sparrow stumbled a few steps before regaining its footing on the ground. Duan Chongyuan frowned slightly and successively shot 3 more arrows. 2 hit their mark, but the third grazed the sparrow's wing, staining a few feathers red. The southern new crown prince's shot is void, the referee announced loudly. Without haste, I released 3 arrows simultaneously. 3 arrows simultaneously severed the ropes, and 3 sparrows fell to the ground unharmed. Excellent archery. Cheers erupted from the crowd. For the last arrow, Duan Chongyuan aimed at a copper bell and released the bowstring. My arrow, launched later, overtook his in mid-air, splitting his arrow in half, then grazed past the sides of 2 sparrows, severing one of the ropes. 5-3, Lu Jiao wins. The referee stood up and announced, and everyone from Daong breathed a sigh of relief. Duan Chongyuan clapped his hands with laughter, unfastening the snow soul jade to hand it to me. Miss Lu's archery is truly exceptional. This prince concedes defeat wholeheartedly. The night was deep and still. By the waterside pavilion of Sigue Dock, wind chimes tinkled softly beneath the eaves, as I gazed absently at the pond. A tall figure suddenly emerged from beneath the crabapple tree. Xiao Chengjing stood holding a lantern amidst the flower shadows, his eyes gentle. Your Highness, is something the matter? He walked straight over, sat down on the stone bench, and then pulled out a Celadon medicine bottle from his sleeve. Your hand. He took my right hand, dabbed some ointment on his fingertip, and gently applied it. Today, during the archery competition, you frowned when you drew the bow. I was astonished by his meticulousness. When I subdued the startled horse, My right hand was chafed and bleeding. During the archery contest, all my focus was on listening to sounds and determining positions, so I didn't pay much attention to this minor pain. After returning, I also forgot to apply medicine. Thank you, Your Highness. This minor injury is nothing serious. During those 3 years in Jiangnan, how much hardship did you endure? Have you always been this careless with yourself? He raised his head, his gaze profound. The cool medicinal ointment soothed my hand considerably, yet the warmth from his fingertips felt somewhat scorching. I quietly withdrew my hand and said, feigning ease, "It's not that hard, I'm strong. I go to the docks to move goods, hunt in the mountains. No one dares to mess with me." His gaze fell on the calluses on my palm, and he frowned slightly. "No wonder you're much darker than before. You must have been out in the sun a lot." I was annoyed that he called me dark and didn't notice the abnormality in his words. "Your Highness, has no one told you that you shouldn't call a woman dark? Just telling the truth. Black is good. When I lie on the roof at night, no one can tell there's someone hiding there." Xiao Chengjing was momentarily stunned, then let out a soft chuckle. "Not quite that dark. Your Highness needn't complain about this subordinate's dark complexion. I've already discussed with my senior sister. Once Lua recovers, we'll return to Jiangnan. By the way, I haven't yet thanked Your Highness for helping retrieve physician Qian. It was nothing, though. If you return to Jiangnan, you won't find monthly wages this high anywhere else." His words struck right at the heart of my concerns. Indeed, 500 taels per month, aside from this spendthrift Xiao Chengjing. Where else in the entire Great Yong could a guard find such absurdly generous pay? Even if I returned to Jiangnan and opened a small shop, working from dawn to dusk without eating or drinking, I probably couldn't save up this amount of monthly silver in a year. Seeing my hesitation, the corner of his lips curled slightly. "You should go back. You saved my life. I'll give you even more silver when the time comes." My eyes immediately sparkled with gold. "Your Highness, you're so kind." He slowly stood up, took a few steps, then turned back again. The night breeze brushed past his temples as his voice suddenly lowered. "Duan Chongyuan is a man of many schemes. Stay away from him. Your Highness, why not let this subordinate stay by his side? Wouldn't that make it easier to keep watch? This prince has his own arrangements. I won't have you taking unnecessary risks. By the way, have Su Mu examine that snow soul jade carefully for any irregularities. Then have him craft an identical piece." The next morning after breakfast, I went to find Su Mu, handed him the snow soul jade, and took the opportunity to ask him to examine the Guiyuan pill as well. This return to origin pill uses premium blood ginseng and snow lotus as main ingredients, supplemented by angelica root and ligusticum. It's indeed an excellent prescription for internal injuries, but the dosage of soul-severing grass is far too heavy. Soul-severing grass, my brow twitched. Sumu's expression turned grave. "Who gave you this medicine? How long have you been taking it?" I forced composure. "Haven't taken it yet, was planning to sell it for silver." He breathed a sigh of relief. Soul-severing herb, true to its name, in small doses, it can relieve pain and calm the mind. But if taken in large quantities over a long period, it will gradually make one forget their past. If one takes it, is there an antidote? After stopping the medication for 2 or 3 months, memory will recover on its own. If there's an external stimulus, it might even recover faster. No wonder I've been vaguely remembering some things from the past lately. "Oh, is the monthly allowance from the prince not enough? I advise you not to take this money." "Understood." I quickly put away the medicine bottle, hastily changing the subject. "Physician Su, is this snow soul jade useful for curing the prince's scarlet flame Gu poison?" Su Mu held the piece of snow soul jade, examining it carefully through a crystal lens for a long while, his frown deepening. "The jade is of excellent quality, pure snow soul from the heavenly mountains, with refined cold energy that's indeed remarkably effective for suppressing fire poison. However, there seems to be something sinister mixed within this jade, something that looks like the egg fluid of living insects." My heart tightened. "Live worms. Can they be removed?" "Difficult. It requires specific medicinal ingredients and techniques. The prince said he wants you to make an identical jade piece. Fortunately, there's jade of similar quality in the storeroom. Give me 3 days, and I might be able to make a convincing replica." Su Mu frowned. placing the snow soul jade into an iron box. Dr. Su, you needn't worry, at the very least, my cultivation technique can suppress the prince's Gu poison. I hadn't kept my cultivation technique hidden from Su Mu. Actually, Su Mu suddenly flushed red, flipping open a medical text to show me. Inspired by the Haichuan method, I've discovered the best solution for the red flame Gu poison. Extreme yang poison requires extreme yin cultivation as a medium, to be resolved through dual cultivation. But this method is perilous if the hearts aren't aligned. Both practitioners' meridians will shatter, leaving Su Mu's courtyard. I reflected on recent events, the unease in my heart growing ever stronger. The rejuvenation pill was prepared by my senior sister. What exactly does she want me to forget? When I mentioned Alan to my senior sister, her reaction was all too conspicuous. Could it be that I am truly the Alan whom Xiao Chengjing called out for when the cold pond's poison flared up? Who exactly is Alan? And the snow soul jade Duan Chongyuan went to great lengths to transfer it to me, surely not just to help Xiao Chengjing detoxify. As I walked, I secretly rubbed the hidden pouch at my waist with my fingertips. Inside it lay a black iron token, an old relic I had found in the study of Siguiwu. The front of the token was engraved with the characters mirror clarity, while the water ripple patterns on its back were nearly worn smooth. As if someone had held and rubbed it countless times, the token looked familiar as the scenery of Siguiwu. Alan, the mirror clarity token, snow soul jade. I turned and ran all the way to Xiao Chengjing's study. Xiao Chengjing was bent over his desk, writing swiftly with bold strokes. When he saw me enter, his wrist froze. Your Highness, who is Alan? A deep, unfathomable pain surged in Xiao Chengjing's eyes, his knuckles turning white as he gripped the brush tightly. She is the young mistress of Mingjing Mountain Villa. 4 years ago, on the battlefield in the northern frontier, to save me, she carried a dummy to distract the pursuers and jumped off a cliff. Is she your beloved? Understood. I braced my hands on the edge of the desk, leaning across it to close the distance between us. I could almost feel his suddenly erratic breath brush against my cheek. Your Highness, then do you like me? Clatter. The brush in Xiao Chengjing's hand fell onto the Shen paper, staining it with a messy ink blot. He hastily bent down to pick up the brush, no longer looking at me. I pressed one hand against his wrist and with the other, I stroked his chest through his clothes. Lu Jiao, you've overstepped. Your Highness, look at me. Allow me to confirm something. I stared at his slightly flushed cheeks, my heart pounding. Without waiting for his consent, I stood on tiptoe and kissed his lips, cold. But the next instant, I clearly felt his breath grow scorching and rapid, when I deliberately grazed his slightly cool lower lip with my teeth. A stifled moan escaped his throat. He almost instinctively raised his left hand, his broad, warm palm suddenly gripping the back of my neck. His breath was completely erratic, overwhelming me as he seemed intent on deepening the kiss. Suddenly, a flash of pain and clarity flickered in his eyes, as if struck by something sharp. The hand gripping my neck abruptly loosened. Lu Jiao, you, how dare you? I staggered back, steadied myself, and then smiled. Your Highness, your body is far more honest than your words. I stared into his flustered, evasive eyes that couldn't conceal his desire. This subordinate has confirmed everything. Without waiting for his reaction, I turned and darted out of the study. I was now certain I am Alan. My intuition told me the answer lay in the Southern U Embassy. At night, I changed into my dark attire and infiltrated the Southern U Embassy. Duan Chongyuan's defenses were tight, forcing me to hide on the rooftop nearest to the main hall where he resided. Under the moonlight, a man draped in a black cloak and wearing a silver mask came into view, stealthily knocking on Duan Chongyuan's door. Moments later, the silhouettes of 2 seated figures appeared on the window paper, their whispers like the hissing of venomous snakes. I held my breath, pushing the Haichuan technique to its limits to catch every word of the conversation. In 3 days will be the palace's begonia banquet. It was Duan Chongyuan's voice. Your Highness need not worry. Red Peony has been thoroughly trained. The masked man's hoarse voice was unsettling. When she dances before the Emperor tomorrow, she'll surely captivate Xiao Qinglin's gaze. As for the Prince of Chu, the flaming Gu poison keeps recurring, which means his days are surely numbered. Sir's heart is ruthless enough. 4 years ago he already He's always ruined my plans, so how could I let him off easy? A chill ran through my body. Could this masked man be Xiao Chengshu? Speaking of which, that female guard Lu Jiao by his side, Xiao Chengjing seems to treat her differently from others, just a substitute. Lu Tinglan died long ago in the northern frontier. If she were still alive, to avenge the blood debt of Mirror Lake Manor, she would hunt me to the ends of the earth. Mirror Lake Manor, Lu Tinglan. A sharp pain shot through my mind as countless fragments clamored to break free. I remembered the scattered bones and Mirror Lake Manor reduced to ashes. Arlan, forget it. Forget all of this. If you seek revenge now, you'll die too. Arlan, you're all I have left. Little sister, you mustn't go. I remember now, in the drizzling rain of Chishya Mountain, my senior sister clung desperately to my leg. In the end, she pulled out her hairpin and pressed it against her own throat. After that, I forgot many things, forgot who I was, forgot the blood debt of Mirror Lake Manor. Sir, if the plan succeeds, apart from those few cities in the south, I want Lu Jiao. She resembles a wolf on the snowy plains. I do so enjoy taming such prey. Your Highness, be careful, thorny flowers can prick. I happen to enjoy the prickly ones, but compared to Lu Jiao, your plan cannot afford the slightest mistake. What I'm gambling with is more than just the crown prince's position. If we fail, my ever-watchful second brother will personally trample me into the mud. I clenched my palms so tightly that my nails dug deep into the flesh, the piercing pain barely suppressing the surging memories and the murderous intent threatening to burst forth. Don't kill him. Duan Chongyuan's identity is special. Killing him now would ignite a war between the two nations. Moreover, for the sake of his despicable schemes, he would surely fight to the death to protect the masked man. Yet, I can't bear to leave empty-handed. These two are in cahoots, and there might be evidence of their collusion hidden in the southern New Embassy. Seizing the brief moment when the guards below were changing shifts, I silently infiltrated the masked man's room. A heavy medicinal odor mixed with a faint, unsettling stench lingered in the air. Quickly scanning the surroundings, my gaze finally settled on a tall, intricately carved ebony cabinet with distinct southern Vietnamese characteristics placed against the wall. Holding my breath, I stepped forward and ran my fingertips carefully along the edge of the cabinet. When I touched an inconspicuous, vine knot-shaped protrusion on the back of the cabinet, my fingers met the cold touch of metal. A mechanism. I tentatively pressed it. Click. A very faint mechanical sound was heard. The cabinet door slid open sideways, revealing a hidden compartment about 2 feet square. A stronger, more pungent stench of blood and decay rushed out. Inside the compartment was a wide-mouthed glass bottle containing a thick, blood-like liquid, in which several dark red insect eggs were suspended. Beside the glazed bottle lay several letters and a broken wooden hairpin, its tail carved with water patterns. That hairpin looked familiar. It seemed to be an old possession of mine. A chilling coldness instantly shot from my feet to the top of my head. Was this masked man really Xiao Chengshu? Why was he hiding my hairpin? Suppressing my doubt and disgust, I gently pulled a letter from a stack and tucked it into my bosom. Buzz, a sharp, ear-piercing hum suddenly exploded in the room. Damn it, there's an alarm mechanism set in the secret compartment. Catch the assassin. The sound of hurried footsteps, the clang of swords being drawn, and the glow of torches rapidly approached from a distance. Bang! The door was kicked open as several guards in tight-fitting uniforms rushed in, their gleaming blades instantly sealing off both the doorway and windows. At the forefront was Duan Chongyuan, his eyes filled with icy killing intent. Seize them, take them alive. I quickly grabbed the glass bottle and hurled it at the face of the guard charging ahead. Crash! The glass bottle shattered, splashing the foul-smelling liquid all over the guards' faces and bodies. They screamed in agony, covering their eyes as they stumbled back. Amid the chaos, I vaulted out the window, fought off several guards outside, snatched a long sword, and shot onto the rooftop like an arrow loosed from its bow. Almost simultaneously, shadowy figures emerged along the surrounding rooftops, with over a dozen powerful bows gleaming coldly under the moonlight, encircling me completely. On the day Duan Chongyuan entered the capital, a horse panic incident occurred in the suburbs. After several days of investigation with Xiao Chengjing, we finally traced the Silver Needles and Wolfsbane to the southern Yu Court. This was clearly a scheme orchestrated by Duan Chongyuan himself. His aim was to use the danger as an excuse to legitimately demand Xiao Chengjing to strengthen the protection of the Southern Yu envoy. Now it seems the Southern Yu embassy's defenses have indeed become impregnable. Loose the arrows, the sky darkened with a rain of arrows, and I inwardly cursed my misfortune as I desperately parried wave after wave of shafts with my long sword. Just as I sought an opening to escape, a dark shadow suddenly swept past. Sword light wove into an impenetrable net, cleaving through the cold arrows before abruptly pulling me behind him. Thud, an arrow buried itself into flesh. I looked up to meet Xiao Chengjing's peach blossom eyes. The yellow sand blotted out the sky, arrows rained down like locusts, and the silver-armored youth shielded me with his own body. The fragmented memories that had been flashing through my mind lately overlapped with reality in this moment. "It's you," my voice trembled. "Go." He struggled to push me away. I pressed down on Xiao Chengjing's wrist as the Haichuan formula surged through my meridians like a tidal wave. A frigid current churned in my dantian, spreading through my limbs in an instant. Freezing ice, I silently chanted, my palms weaving intricate seals. In that moment, hundreds of crystalline ice spikes materialized under the moonlight, shooting forth with bone-chilling cold. The guards at the forefront fell instantly, some with blood blossoming from their shoulders, others with deep gashes revealing bone on their cheeks, while several more tumbled straight from the rooftops. Their bodies striking the bluestone pavement with dull thuds. Duan Chongyuan's expression changed abruptly, his dark sleeves fluttering as he leaped onto the roof ridge. 3 silver threads shot out from his sleeves, coiling toward my ankles like venomous snakes. Xiao Chengjing's sword flashed, severing the silver threads, but he could no longer suppress the surging energy in his body. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, I continued forming hand seals, and the second wave of ice spikes took shape. The crystalline blades, carrying a deadly chill, forced Duan Chongyuan and the others to retreat. "Hold tight." I hoisted Xiao Chengjing onto my back and lightly tapped my toes, leaping between the rooftops. The night wind howled past my ears as the pursuing soldiers' shouts gradually faded into the darkness. I darted into an abandoned mansion in the southern part of the city and gently laid Xiao Chengjing on a pile of withered grass. By the moonlight, I could clearly see his injury. A crossbow bolt was deeply embedded 3 inches below his right scapula, with dark red blood staining large patches of his black clothing. "Fortunately, it's not poisoned," I sighed in relief, gripping the shaft and pulling it out abruptly. Xiao Chengjing groaned faintly in his unconscious state, his forehead beading with fine droplets of cold sweat. I quickly took out the golden-wound medicine I carried with me and sprinkled it on the injury. Then tore off the hem of my inner garment to bandage him. "Jing." I softly called out this name that had surfaced from the depths of my memory, repeating it over and over. After what felt like an eternity, Xiao Chengjing slowly opened his eyes, his thick lashes fluttering slightly. "What did you just call me?" he murmured. "Jing," I answered, lifting him up to rest his head sideways on my lap. As my fingertips brushed across his blood-stained cheek, they met with a chilling dampness. Only then did I realize, without noticing, my tears had fallen all over his face. "I remember everything now. I am Lu Tinglan from Mirror Mountain Villa, the young general who shielded me from arrows amidst the mountains of corpses in the northern frontier 4 years ago. That was Xiao Chengjing, at the embassy. I could have escaped unscathed. Why did you have to show yourself? Don't you know your poison has already?" He raised his hand, wiping away my tears with his slender, well-defined fingers. "Alan, I fear your death more than my own." His fingertips were cold, yet they burned so fiercely that my heart trembled. "Once, I protected Daong, I protected countless lives, but I couldn't protect you, nor could I save Mirrorlight Manor. Now, I just want to guard you one last time, so you and senior sister chose to keep it from me." At this moment, the fragments of memory finally pieced together completely. The great upheaval from 4 years ago slowly surfaced in my mind. The late emperor died suddenly, and Xiao Chengshu murdered his brothers and slaughtered his kin. Beacon fires raged across the Great Yong, and corpses piled up like mountains. At the height of the internal strife, the Fengkai Kingdom invaded the Great Yong with 100,000 iron cavalry, sweeping through all resistance. My father, Lu Ziyi, was the master of Mingjing Villa and the elder brother of consort Xiao Chengshu's birth mother, from the day my aunt insisted on entering the palace. He took his disciples to live in seclusion on Chixia Mountain, strengthening his body with swordsmanship and healing the world with medicine, far from the conflicts of the court. But when the nation faced peril and the land was shattered, he ultimately stepped forward. The great Yong can do without the Mirror Lake Manor, but it absolutely cannot lose the northern frontier defense. That day, clad in armor and wielding weapons, he led me and over 100 disciples north with Xiao Chengjing to repel the invaders. The yellow sands of the northern frontier that year were dyed red with blood time and again, ultimately becoming the burial ground for countless heroic souls. Our supremely skilled senior martial brother was impaled by multiple spears, perishing together with the enemy commander in mutual destruction. The fifth senior brother, skilled in formation tactics, held the pass with 8 junior brothers until their bones were crushed into pulp. The sixth senior sister, a master of medicine, collapsed by the medicine furnace from exhaustion and never woke again. In that final battle, I closed my eyes, my voice trembling. Father took 27 arrows yet still propped himself up with his spear. He never fell, even in death. And you, to cure me of the crimson flame Gu poison, you exhausted all your inner strength. Then carried a decoy to lure away the pursuers before leaping off the cliff. Xiao Chengjing gripped my hand, his eyes filled with anguish. I sent men to search the base of the cliff for 3 months, found nothing. I seemed to hear again the howling wind and the whistling arrows of that day. After falling off the cliff, I was caught on a dead tree halfway down the mountain. Later, I crawled into a cave, living like a beast, surviving on raw flesh and blood. By the time I finally climbed back up the cliff, you had already withdrawn your troops and returned to the capital. I rushed day and night back to Chixia Mountain, only to find a mountain of bleached bones and the charred ruins of the once glistening Mirror Lake Manor. My senior sister Qin Zhaoan told me that after Xiao Chengshu failed in his bid for the throne, he took his anger out on my father Lu Ziyi, sending men to massacre the entire manor. Your father knew it on the battlefield. Xiao Chengjing's voice choked with emotion, but he said nothing, just bore it alone. Lan, your father was a true hero. In the end, the Xiao family failed the Mirror Lake Manor. A metallic sweetness surged up my throat, and I suddenly spat out several mouthfuls of blood. Lan. Xiao Chengjing immediately steadied my shoulders, frantically wiping the blood from my lips with his sleeve. Don't rush, but his fingertips were trembling too. I gripped his wrist. Did Shijie come looking for you long ago? He nodded slowly. That day she took a few children down the mountain to buy supplies and escaped the disaster. Later, she waited for you at Chixia Mountain for 2 whole months. At the time, your internal injuries were severe, and you were determined to go take revenge on Xiao Chengshu. She couldn't stop you, so she had to drug you. Lan, once Louis' condition stabilizes, I'll arrange for someone to take you back to Jiangnan. As for the vengeance against Bright Mirror Manor, I'll give you an answer. No. I met Xiao Chengjing's gaze squarely, enunciating each word clearly. I will take revenge with my own hands. Lan, his voice was slightly hoarse. I'd rather you remain Lu Jiao forever. It took me so much effort to convince myself that even if we never acknowledge each other again, I wouldn't want you to step into danger once more, but I've already been part of this game. Moreover, tonight I used the Haichuan technique. If that masked man is truly Xiao Chengshu, I've already exposed myself. He spent a year recuperating at Bright Mirror Villa and recognizes this martial art. Although father had long severed ties with aunt, when she abandoned the severely wounded Xiao Chengshu on Chixia Mountain, father still brought him into the villa and exhausted all means to heal him. When he learned of the massacre at Mirror Lake Manor, the pain in my father's heart must have been 100 times worse than mine. The moonlight was frost-white when I jolted awake from my dream, finding no one by my side. Following the sound of ragged breathing, I found Xiao Chengjing in a side chamber of the abandoned house. He leaned against the corner, his robe wide open, crimson patterns slithering like venomous snakes across his skin. The veins on his forehead bulged violently, his entire body as if being scorched over raging flames. Jing. I knelt on the ground, pressing my palm against his burning chest. Ice blue tendrils of cold energy seeped from my palm. only to be devoured instantly by the crimson venomous patterns the moment they touched his skin. Go! He suddenly raised his head, his scarlet eyes flickering between clarity and madness. This time, it's different. I'll hurt you. I'm not afraid, I can. Before the words had even left my mouth, Xiao Chengjing suddenly lunged forward, pinning me against the wall, his nose pressed against my jaw, his scorching breath fanning across my neck as his voice came out hoarse and broken. You've exhausted most of your inner strength. You can't suppress it. Go, quickly, find Sumu. His voice was laced with restraint on the verge of collapse. The arm locked around my waist was taut as steel, yet trembled uncontrollably when it touched my skin. As if waging a desperate battle against the primal desire raging within him, I brushed my fingers against his sweat-drenched temple, gazing into those peach blossom eyes being devoured by agony. 4 years ago, we made a promise, if we survived, we'd become husband and wife. Remembering Sumu's words, I let my fingers trail downward and untied my own sash. Xiao Chengjing's pupils constricted violently as he seized my wrist. Alan, no, you must return to Jiangnan. Only then did I understand he had known all along this method could cure his red flame Gu poison, yet chose to endure it alone. He wanted me to return to Jiangnan, wanted me to remain just Lu Jiao, but whether as Lu Tinglan or Lu Jiao, the same person dwelled in my heart. Sure, I embraced him, my breath brushing past his burning ear, drowning out his ragged panting. Listen, the wind bears witness to our vows, the moon our wedding candle. Before the words had fully left my mouth, my lips were already pressed against his chapped ones. The moment our lips met, his entire body shuddered violently, a muffled groan of pain and desire escaping his throat. I bit the tip of my tongue, transferring a stream of vital blood infused with primordial cold energy into his mouth. Xiao Chengjing let out a pained grunt, like a caged beast set ablaze, suddenly flipping me onto the scattered garments. His scorching palm cradled the back of my head as his burning breath seared against me. Alan, if it hurts, bite me. When the opposing forces of extreme yin and yang clashed violently at the deepest meridians between us, it felt as though our very souls were being torn apart. A pain 100 times more intense than the suppression of the cold pond instantly racked my entire body, my vision flickering black as my nails dug deep into his tensed arms. Xiao Chengjing gently kissed my lips, swallowing every one of my whimpers. The pure icy energy of the Haichuan Ju flowed like a trickling glacial spring, actively guiding and enveloping the rampaging crimson fire poison as it surged downward, both transforming into sweat that dissipated. Xiao Chengjing's body trembled like autumn leaves in the wind, the crimson patterns flickering unpredictably, sometimes surging like molten lava, other times being overtaken by icy blue. Large beads of sweat dripped onto the side of my neck. Scalding hot, Arlan, he called my name over and over, as if it were the only lifeline he could cling to. Time seemed to stretch for millennia before the violent crimson flames within him finally receded like a tide. The ferocious patterns on his skin faded inch by inch, leaving only a faint flush where the intense heat had retreated. An indescribable weakness swept over both of them, as if all strength had been drained from their bodies. Xiao Chengjing pulled me into his embrace, his cool lips pressing against my sweat-dampened temple with a tremor of having narrowly escaped death. The moonlight shifted quietly, illuminating the familiar crescent-shaped scar beneath his collarbone and those peach blossom eyes still clouded with lingering passion. Deep within those eyes, there now shone an unprecedented clarity and relief. The shackles that had tormented him for 4 years, burning to the bone and searing the heart, had finally been broken. Arlan. He stroked my back rhythmically, his voice hoarse. When dawn comes, I'll enter the palace to ask His Majesty for our marriage decree. I lazily curled up in his arms, tracing circles on the crescent-shaped scar on his collarbone with my fingertip. Then I want a lavish dowry, preferably in gold. He chuckled softly, pulling me closer. All right, everything I have, I'll give to you. A sudden night breeze rose, carrying a flurry of crabapple blossoms past the eaves from the tree outside the window. The full moon at the horizon had quietly hidden behind a veil of clouds, leaving only a hazy halo visible, exactly like a bride lifting her veil to cover her blushing face. At the hour of yin, Xiao Chengjing and I returned to the prince's bedchamber through the secret passage. Sumu was pacing anxiously back and forth in the chamber, his sleeves crumpled from being tightly gripped. "Your Highness." He rushed forward in swift strides, fingers pressing against Xiao Chengjing's wrist pulse. "How dare you go out on the night of a full moon?" His voice abruptly cut off as he looked up in disbelief. "The Gu poison. How could?" Sumu's gaze darted between me and Xiao Chengjing, then suddenly widened in shock. I see." He abruptly took 2 steps back, the silver needle pouch in his sleeve clattering to the floor. "This subordinate will go prepare the restorative tonic immediately." With that, he stumbled backward in an awkward gait, nearly crashing into the carved screen. Xiao Chengjing chuckled softly, wrapping an arm around my waist. "The inner chamber has hot water prepared. Shall I help my consort undress?" My ears burned instantly, and I swatted his hand away. "No, no." Making sure the corridor was empty, I swiftly fled back to the Sai Gui Wu. 3 days later, in the imperial garden, crabapple blossoms fluttered like snow, amidst the clinking of cups. Duan Chongyuan stepped forward with a wine vessel in hand, his jade crown casting shadows over eyes that held a trace of amusement. "Your Majesty, on this northern journey, for the eternal friendship between our 2 nations." His gaze swept past Sun Jining at the banquet before finally settling on me. "I wish to propose the marriage of Sun Jining, the second daughter of Prime Minister Sun, as the crown princess, and also request that the Prince of Chu reluctantly part with his beloved." Appointing Guard Lu as the Liangdi, the crisp sound of silver chopsticks hitting the floor shattered the silence. Sun Jining's wide sleeves fluttered, revealing fingers that were pale with shock. Xiao Chengjing sneered as he drew a bright yellow scroll from his sleeve. "What a coincidence. Yesterday, I already obtained His Majesty's permission for marriage. My consort certainly cannot go to Nanyu." Amidst the stunned silence, Xiao Chenglin set down his wine cup. "Your Highness the Crown Prince may not know this, but Lu Jiao's original name is Lu Tinglan, the daughter of the late Marquis Junbei, Lu Ziyi, and also the chief meritorious official in the Northern Border War. She and the Prince of Chu are deeply in love, and naturally, I must play the role of a benevolent matchmaker. My father, Lu Ziyi, was posthumously honored as Marquis Junbei by the imperial court for his outstanding achievements in the Northern Border War." Duan Chongyuan's knuckles turned white as he gripped his cup, but he suddenly smiled again. "This subject has been presumptuous. Today, I have brought the Nanyu dancer Hongshao to perform for your Majesty." The rhythmic beats of the jie drum echoed as a woman in red approached with steps as delicate as crushed jade. A sheer veil concealed her face, but the glimmer in her eyes outshone even the most vibrant begonias in the garden. Xiao Qinglin's gaze remained fixed on Hongshao, his jade thumb ring tapping lightly against the table with crisp, rhythmic clicks. Prince Chu's move to cut the ground from under one's feet is truly admirable. Duan Chongyuan approached with a wine cup in hand, deliberately lowering his voice as he passed by me. "Miss Lu, we have all the time in the world." The amber-hued wine suddenly spilled, spreading a dark stain across Xiao Chengjing's purple brocade robe. "Oh dear." This palace hand slipped. Duan Chongyuan feigned remorse while pressing his palm hard against Xiao Chengjing's back wound under the guise of wiping. "Let this palace wipe it clean for the Prince of Chu." Xiao Chengjing remained motionless, not even a flicker of his eyelashes betraying him. He calmly brushed off Duan Chongyuan's hand and leisurely straightened his collar. "Your Highness the Crown Prince is drunk. This palace is perfectly sober." Duan Chongyuan suddenly changed expression, his fingers clawing into Xiao Chengjing's shoulder like talons. "How about the Prince of Chu accompanies this palace for some physical exercise?" Before the words had fully left his mouth, he abruptly exerted force. Xiao Chengjing turned slightly, his backhand seizing Duan Chongyuan's wrist at a vital pressure point. Within the small space, the two moved subtly, their wide sleeves fluttering as they exchanged several blows. "Stop," the emperor roared, his jade archer's ring striking heavily against the table. "The King of Chu is drunk, now get back to your palace." Only then did Duan Chongyuan release his grip. I saw a bead of cold sweat trickle down Xiao Chengjing's temple, but his face remained composed. "The Crown Prince has excellent skill." As he finished speaking, he suddenly coughed violently, a dark red thread of blood seeping from between his fingers. Seeing this, Duan Changyuan imperceptibly curved the corner of his lips. In the carriage on the way back to the manor, Xiao Chenjing finally dropped his pretense. He leaned back against the soft cushion, the wound on his back having split open, blood soaking through his snow-white inner garment. "He's suspicious," I said, carefully tending to his wound and applying the golden saw medicine. Xiao Chenjing closed his eyes to rest. But a cold smile curled at the corners of his lips. "It's fine. He can't very well strip me bare in public to check for injuries. I hope the medicine Sumu prepared can truly fool Duan Changyuan. We can't let them know my GU poison has been cured. My elder brother already has plans for how to break the deadlock, but we need to wait for the right moment." After a moment's thought, I said quietly, "Waiting idly for the enemy is too passive. Why don't we create an opportunity ourselves to lure the snake out of its hole?" Xiao Chenjing's smile deepened as he reached out to caress my cheek. "What brilliant plan does my consort have in mind?" Upon returning to the Chu prince's residence, I helped the slightly flushed Xiao Chenjing alight from the carriage. Fine beads of cold sweat had formed at his temples, and his body trembled faintly, as if enduring immense pain. Li Chuan came limping forward to meet us. "Li Chuan, quickly summon Sumu and make sure not to alert anyone else in the residence." After helping Xiao Chenjing lie down, Sumu and I stood talking in the bedchamber. "Sumu, we can't wait any longer. The prince's GU poison is getting worse by the day. We must try the Snow Soul Jade. But I can't shake the feeling there's something wrong with this jade, though I can't quite put my finger on what it is. No matter what, saving the prince comes first. Besides, Duan Changyuan is still in the capital. He wouldn't dare play any tricks with the jade." "All right then, if you say so." Using my inner energy to activate the Snow Soul Jade, I helped Xiao Chenjing suppress the GU poison several times. On one such occasion, I happened to be seen by Li Chuan. Xiao Chenjing's complexion turned ashen, his breathing grew faint, and he needed support to move around. The frequency of his vomiting blood increased with each passing day. Sumu wore a perpetual frown, sighing and groaning daily as he constantly revised his prescriptions. The entire Chu Wang residence was shrouded in a gloomy atmosphere. I entered the palace to see the emperor and requested to perform a joyous celebration for Xiao Chenjing. The emperor consented. 10 days later, I sat upright in the bridal chamber, listening to the music and clamor drifting from the front hall, my palms damp with a thin layer of sweat. The palace door was gently pushed open, letting in a faintly cool night breeze. Xiao Chenjing, clad in elaborate wedding attire, was supported by attendants as he entered, followed by a meek-looking wedding matron who kept her head bowed. In her hands, she carried a golden tray bearing 2 gourd cups tied together with a red string. Xiao Chenjing waved his hand to dismiss the attendants. As the heavy palace door closed, the wedding matron suddenly looked up, revealing a face smeared garishly with rouge and powder. It was none other than Sumu. "Your Highness, Your Grace," Sumu whispered, his voice brimming with excitement. "Everything is in place. The wine in the cellar that Li Chuan laced with puppet poison has all been replaced with golden millet dream. At most, this drug will cause erratic pulses and temporary paralysis for an hour. No one will suspect a thing. The gourd cups have been switched too." "All right," Xiao Chenjing nodded, the frost in his eyes melting into a spring pond as they met mine. "Alan, are you scared?" I met his gaze. "They're the ones who should be scared." He chuckled softly, his palm covering my slightly cool hand, warmth radiating through my skin. "Proceed as planned, and be sure to be careful." Sumu grinned, then retreated with the tray into the shadows cast by the candlelight, instantly transforming back into the dull, submissive matchmaker. Outside the hall, the sharp, drawn-out chant of the Directorate of Ceremonial rang out. The auspicious hour has arrived. This time, what poured in was not just the night wind, but also officials in purple robes and jade belts, palace attendants carrying various ceremonial vessels, and a grand retinue surrounding that bright yellow figure. Emperor Xiao Chenglin had arrived in person. He wore casual attire, with the majestic bearing of a dragon and the grace of a phoenix, the smile playing on his lips. By his side nestled a gorgeously dressed beauty, Red Peony. No, she should now be addressed as Consort Lan, clad in a water-red palace gown, her hair piled high in elaborate clouds, adorned with pearls and jade. She exuded even more regal elegance than when first seen, yet her alluring almond-shaped eyes darted restlessly, especially when they flickered over the gourd cup held by Su Mu, revealing a barely perceptible hint of urgency. Long live the emperor. Everyone in the hall, including me and Xiao Chengjing, knelt in unison to pay respects. Rise. The emperor's gaze swept gently over me and Xiao Chengjing. Today, I have come especially to preside over the sixth brother's wedding and claim a cup of celebratory wine. Consort Lan forced a faint smile and nodded slightly at me and Xiao Chengjing, yet her gaze remained firmly locked on the gourd-shaped cup. The ceremonial official proclaimed in a loud voice, "Perform the hand-washing rite. Perform the shared meal rite, commence the nuptial cup ceremony." Su Mu presented the gourd cups. Xiao Chengjing and I each held half a gourd, drinking 3 sips until emptied. After drinking, Xiao Chengjing swayed slightly, nearly collapsing, and I immediately steadied him by the arm. All of this was observed by Consort Lan, whose lips curled into a faint, imperceptible smirk. The master of ceremonies proclaimed in a drawn-out voice, "The rite is complete, may you be united in heart forever." Before the echo of united hearts had faded, the sounds of string music, laughter, and clinking cups from the front hall were severed as if by a sharp blade, plunging into deathly silence. Xiao Chengjing and I hurried out with the emperor. In the courtyard, the red silk still hung, and the candles burned brightly. But the seated guests had turned rigid as clay or wooden statues, their eyes covered with a deathly grey film that reflected a cold, eerie glow under the candlelight. "Protect His Majesty! Protect His Majesty!" The palace servants screamed in terror, their voices rising in unison. Amidst this extreme chaos and panic, a tall, slender figure cloaked in black and wearing a silver mask stepped into the courtyard like a ghost, treading upon the cold moonlight.
The emperor's face turned ashen. While the Black Armor army hesitated, constrained by the hostages, not a soul dared move. "Duan Chongyuan, release them," I shouted hoarsely, my heart pounding in my throat. "Fine, but you come here, follow me." Duan Chongyuan roared, dragging Shijie step by step backward as he tried to approach the manor gates. "Don't do anything reckless, I promise you. Our Lan, don't go." Xiao Chengjing grabbed my hand. "They're also the most important people to me, I can't abandon them." I yanked my hand free from Xiao Chengjing's grasp, but as I turned, our eyes met in silent understanding. I slowly approached Duan Chongyuan, stopping 3 steps away from him, then suddenly exclaimed while looking behind Ju Yi, "Xiao Chengshu, you're actually alive." Ju Yi instinctively turned his head just in that split second. Whoosh! Xiao Chengjing's hidden weapon came whistling through the air, aimed straight at Ju Yi's face, as Ju Yi hastily bent down to dodge. I seized the moment to close the distance, delivering a powerful palm strike to his shoulder blade. With a crisp crack, Ju Yi groaned and released Lua, drawing his saber with a backhanded motion to slash at me. The blade gleamed like snow as I sidestepped and engaged him in close combat. At the same time, 3 silver streaks shot from different angles. One embedded itself in Duan Chongyuan's shoulder acupoint, another pierced through his dagger-wielding wrist, while the last grazed his Adam's apple, leaving a bloody trail on his neck. Seizing the opportunity, my senior sister arched backward and drove her elbow like a hammer into Duan Chongyuan's ribs. The sound of cracking bones was unmistakable as he doubled over in pain. Su Mu descended like a falling leaf, the cold glint of silver needles flashing between her fingers. How does the southern new crown prince find the taste of the Su family's soul-locking needle technique? My heart trembled. Su Mu, who was usually so carefree, actually possessed such extraordinary skills. Duan Chongyuan staggered back, staring in disbelief at his own trembling hands. Xiao Chengjing's sword tip pressed against his throat, a drop of blood slowly sliding down the blade. "You've lost." Duan Chongyuan's dagger clattered to the ground as he clutched his wrist, pierced by a silver needle, and collapsed to the floor in agony. "Your Highness, it would be best not to use your internal energy," Su Mu said with a smile. "If this soul-locking needle penetrates even a fraction deeper, your right arm will be completely crippled." Not far away, Ju Yi lay prostrate on the ground, blood continuously gushing from his mouth, unable to utter a complete sentence. My senior sister rushed to my side, holding Lua, and the little girl finally couldn't hold back, bursting into tears. I gently stroked her small face, feeling her warm tears, and my heart, which had been hanging in the balance, finally settled. Xiao Chengjing sheathed his sword and pulled me into his embrace. He leaned down and gritted his teeth in my ear. "If you ever dare to let go of my hand again, How does His Highness intend to proceed? I tilted my head back, looking at him defiantly. Then I shall. He suddenly tightened his arms, firmly trapping me in his embrace. Hold you even tighter. Xiao Chenglin looked down at Duan Chongyuan, who had collapsed to the ground, his gaze colder than the depths of winter. Duan Chongyuan, you conspired with the traitor Xiao Chengshu, plotting to sow chaos in the great Yong dynasty with poison, attempting to harm me and the entire court. He raised his hand to receive the letters presented by the eunuch. These are all your handwritten letters plotting with Xiao Chengshu, under the guise of a peace marriage. You sought to overthrow the throne. Duan Chongyuan's face turned ashen, his lips trembling uncontrollably, yet not a single word could escape him. Take him down. The emperor commanded, and the black-armored army immediately stepped forward. Draft a state letter at once and send it by urgent dispatch to Nanyu. I want to ask the emperor of Nanyu what he intends by allowing his son to commit such atrocities. 2 black-armored soldiers hoisted the limp Duan Chongyuan, his luxurious python robe dragging through the bloodstains on the floor, leaving a glaring crimson trail on the pristine ground. The once arrogant crown prince of Nanyu was now like a stray dog, dragged out of the great hall. Another black-armored army commander stepped forward, reporting to your majesty. The rebel Li Chuan has been apprehended. Li Chuan was brought in, his arms twisted behind his back by 2 soldiers. His hair was disheveled, and a trace of blood stained the corner of his mouth. The usual coldness had vanished from his face, replaced by a pallid, deathly pallor. Xiao Chengjing slowly stepped forward, his gaze sharper than an ice pick. Commander Li, the assassination at Cold Pond, the arson in the morgue, the poison in the wedding wine. You've done so much, it must have been exhausting. His voice was not loud, yet every word was a dagger to the heart. I should also thank you, if not for you. How would Xiao Chengshu have believed that I was dying from the, and how would he have believed that I used the Snow Soul Jade to detoxify myself? Li Chuan trembled violently, a gurgling sound escaping his throat as if he were being strangled. He stared fixedly at Xiao Chengjing, his eyes bloodshot, before finally letting out a bitter laugh. So your highness knew all along. I was forced into it. My wife and children are in Prince Cheng's hands. Your wife and child have been rescued by this prince. 4 years ago on the northern frontier battlefield, you rendered outstanding service. Consider this repayment for your past loyalty to sovereign and country. Upon hearing this, Li Chuan collapsed limply, his forehead striking the floor tiles with a heavy thud as blood mingled with tears spread across the surface. Thank you, your highness. This subordinate deserves death. The emperor waved his sleeve impatiently. A traitor indeed deserves death. Drag him out and behead him. His gaze swept across the wedding hall's utter disarray before he reached out to pat Xiao Chengjing's shoulder. As the emperor's procession disappeared beyond the palace gates, Xiao Chengjing turned and clasped my fingers tightly in his calloused palm. The warmth from his hand seeped through my skin, more reassuring than any vow. Arlan, he called my name, his voice as light as drizzle falling upon a lake. I squeezed his hand firmly. In the distance, maids were lighting the way with lanterns while my senior sister held Louis' hand, with several children skipping along behind them. Tilting my head up, I forced back the tears welling in my eyes. Yes, it's all over now. The night wind swept through the hall, dispersing the thick scent of blood. Xiao Chengjing pulled me into his embrace, resting his chin atop my head, his voice thick with unspoken apology and heartache. I'm sorry. After finally winning your hand, our wedding day forced you to witness such bloodshed, even implicating your senior sister and the children. Before he could finish speaking, I stood on tiptoe and lightly pecked his cool lips. No matter, I blinked mischievously, deliberately counting on my fingers. Those estates, shops, gold and silver jewelry you gave me have all genuinely gone into my private treasury. This deal isn't a loss. Xiao Chengjing froze for a moment before letting out a low chuckle. The laughter made his chest tremble slightly, causing my heart to flutter along with it. Little moneygrubber. He suddenly bent down and swept me up into his arms. I gasped in surprise and instinctively wrapped my arms around his neck. He carried me swiftly through the corridor, the hem of his crimson wedding robe brushing against fallen petals on the steps. The warm, flickering lights of Sigwilane Cottage awaited its master's return. Arlan, every plant and tree in Sigwilane was planted by my own hands. Even that crabapple tree was transplanted by me. Do you like it? I love it. It's almost identical to the crabapple garden back at Mirror Lake Manor. I've had hot soup prepared. Today, don't run away again. Okay. Half a month later, the Southern U envoys arrived in the capital, presenting a letter of surrender and 10,000 taels of gold as an apology. Duan Chongyuan was stripped of his title as crown prince and demoted to commoner status. The Southern Yu royal court declared, "We await the Great Yong's judgment." The imperial court accepted the gold but allowed Duan Chongyuan to return to his country. Although Duan Chongyuan saved his arm, he would never be able to wield a sword again in this lifetime. On the eve of his departure from the capital, the Ministry of Justice uncovered irrefutable evidence of Prime Minister Sun's embezzlement of military funds. Prime Minister Sun was sentenced to beheading, while the marriage contract between his second legitimate daughter, Sun Jining, and Duan Chongyuan remained unchanged. On the day Duan Chongyuan left the capital, the heavily guarded carriage outside the Vermilion Bird Gate was violently jolted with a loud crash. "Duan Chongyuan, you stray dog, what right do you have to take me to Nanyu? If it weren't for you stirring up trouble in Daeong, my father would never have." Sun Jining sobbed and cursed as she lifted the carriage curtain, revealing a haggard face. "Stop the carriage, stop it. I won't go to Nanyu, I won't." Duan Chongyuan violently grabbed her by the hair and yanked her back into the carriage. "You fool, do you think I care about you?" Amid the crowd, Xiao Chengjing tightened his grip on my hand. "Let's go back. They only deserve to tear at each other in the mud." Epilogue. I leaned against the winding waterside railing, crumbs of apricot blossom pastry scattered across the account book. Sunlight filtered through the gaps in the crabapple branches, casting dappled shadows. "Your Highness," I drawled, waving the account book. "Are you trying to make me the most pampered parasite in Great Yong? How many years' worth of salary would this cover?" By the waterside pavilion, Xiao Chengjing turned at the sound. His moon-white sleeves billowed in the summer breeze like drifting clouds. The koi in the pond leaped up one after another, shattering the emerald water into ripples. He casually scattered the last handful of fish food into the ripples and walked toward me through the shimmering light. As if even the sunlight filling the courtyard made way for him, all of this king's possessions are here now, entirely belonging to the princess consort. He leaned down to snatch the pastry from my fingertips, his lips brushing against them, leaving a tingling sensation. Before I could scold him, a kiss carrying the delicate sweetness of apricot blossoms had already landed on my lips. I held the account book between us as a barrier, only to be pulled into his embrace along with the book. "Since I've already advanced a lifetime's wages," he whispered against my earlobe, his breath carrying the sweet fragrance of pastries. "Then this king will have to rely on the princess consort for close protection for the rest of my life." The prince's abacus beads are practically bouncing off my face. No sooner had the words been spoken than the courtyard gate burst open with a loud bang. Lua charged in like a cannonball, clutching a large bunch of mud-splattered wildflowers, followed by a giggling pack of little radish heads jostling each other in her wake. Leaning against the doorframe, Shijie arched an eyebrow and gave him a sidelong glance. "I picked them. Got a problem with that." Sumu's expression changed instantly. Rubbing his hands together, he leaned in with a smile so ingratiating it seemed flowers might bloom on his face. "Miss WN plucks so skillfully. What I mean is, would you like me to accompany you to gather more?" I looked down and only then realized that someone had quietly slipped a handful of fragrant sedum into my arms at some point. Raising my eyes, my gaze met Xiao Chengjing's smiling ones, his warmth like spring water silently overflowing the fields of my heart. Just at that moment, the bronze bell he had tied to the eaves with his own hands was gently struck by a passing breeze. Dingling, the clear, melodious sound rippled outward, ruffling the surface of the emerald pond and scattering the slumbering reflections of clouds and sunlight in its depths. The laughter of old friends seemed to linger by the steps, while the eaves bell whispered of returning footsteps. Where the wind passes, the heart finds peace. The end.